Alright, this comic I'm looking at today is Supernatural Thrillers 2, featuring the Invisible Man, adapted from the world-famous thriller by H.G. Wells. You simpering swine, so you wanted to know my secret, did you? Well now, you know. It's a great cover here, Jim Strunky cover, very good cover, very good condition copy too, barring the, I assume, pen ink stain or ink runoff at the top left. This is H.G. Wells's The Invisible Man, as adapted by Robert Goulart. I had an internal debate about whether or not he was worthy of an incorrect name. I don't think he has written a lot of comics. The only thing I can for certain recall with confidence that he's written is some issues of Alan Watson, back before Alan Watson was any good. I would imagine he has written some other stories in horror anthology books though. I think he's primarily a sci-fi author. Oh, he actually introduced the Brute as well. In those Alan Watson stories, he introduced the Brute, who went on to reappear in some Roger Thompson, Jorge Perez, Fantastic Force issues. Art is by Val Kilmer, co-creator of Harvey the Duck and long-time Swamp Thing and Marvel horror artist. Val Kilmer, who years after this would go on to appear in another H.G. Wells adaptation, The Island of Dr. Moreau. This is an adaptation that I do not think is perfect. I think at this point, comics weren't really that sure how to approach adapting things from other mediums. And so they tended to specialise in and picking the visual moments, the things in the story they felt lent to either the need for visualization or which made for good visuals. There is very, very little character in this, even for Griffin, the Invisible Man. And Griffin, part of the fun of him is his character. He's completely batshit insane and evil without any real cause. He felt a tad watered down in this. Just a bit of a megalomaniac as opposed to an almost arch-fiend. When it comes to characterization, I feel the comic dropped the ball and missed the obvious idea of using the innkeeper's wife, seen here, as a central source of humanity in this. It is an adaptation though, so they weren't going to completely invent a different story. I'll explain Invisible Man now. H.G. Wells wrote it, but what I want to focus on is the 1933 movie, the Universal movie. It is responsible in part for the Invisible Man's longevity as a second-tier monster icon. It's also, and you can quote me on this, the hardest movie that is actually good. I love that movie. It's a lot of fun. Griffin just being this nasty, spiteful, comically evil prick the minute he becomes invisible. It's wonderful. I don't want to minimise H.G. Wells as the source of the Invisible Man's popularity or even his personality. The movie couldn't exist without his story. I think his story and the movie work hand in hand together to make The Invisible Man an underrated piece of silly science fiction. Griffin is a scientist, quite mad, and he specialises in optic science and light rays and reflections and stuff like that. And he has made himself invisible. He cannot be seen by the naked eye. But he is stuck invisible though. And this has supposedly driven him crazy and made him evil or more evil. He famously wraps himself in bandages and wears goggles on top so that he can be seen. That is the very iconic image that everyone knows. It's so that he can have a visible form. And he uses his invisibility for selfish purposes. Like, he steals coins from a vicar to pay his rent to the innkeepers who are currently housing them. He treats the innkeepers like dirt too. And that is what I like about Invisible Man. He is such an over-the-top, cartoon, evil character. I also feel the need to say at this point, many of you will be asking yourself this, or at least wondering it. What did I think of 2020's The Invisible Man? Didn't like it. Don't like that bag from Mad Men. This is one of the weirder bits of The Invisible Man, straight from the book as well. Thomas Marvel, a homeless man that Griffin coerces into being his assistant. Can you imagine if homeless people dressed like Willy Wonka these days? Griffin uses Thomas to go and steal back all his books and notes from the inn. This part of the story is very poorly adapted because the main thing happens off panel and we're not really clued into it very clearly. Thomas betrays Griffin and runs off with his notes. We rush through things with Griffin now taking refuge in an odd acquaintance's house. And it is here where we get Griffin explaining his origin to us. He made himself invisible. I already summed it up, really. He then went on the run and he began using the invisibility for crime and theft and things like that. And now he has this truly insane idea that he is going to conduct a reign of terror on the world and nobody will be safe until they make him King of England. Mayhap the reason I like Invisible Man so much is he feels a precursor to the comic book supervillain. You can take this and put it in Lenny Luthor's mouth. It sounds like something Green Gobbler would say. You could also give this monologue to Red Skull Man and it would work. Griffin is again betrayed and the police hunt him, leading to a short action scene where Griffin murders some police and he has a scuffle with some more while trying to murder the guy who turned him in. Griffin is injured during this and he tries to sneak away, but they can follow his blood trail. And then they find him passed out, invisible still, and they beat him to death. Sometime later, we find Thomas now running the Invisible Man in, and he still has Griffin's notes, and he wants to recreate Griffin's work and not make all the same mistakes that Griffin did. I don't know what to really say here. It's an adaptation. You get the very, very broad strokes of the story here. It feels based on summary rather than the actual novel. Marvel did do another adaptation of this in Marvel Classics Illustrators, issue 25, I think it is. Can't remember who wrote it or who drew it. Maybe we will look at that one day. I don't think this is of much interest beyond to those who like The Invisible Man or are keen to observe the history of Marvel adaptations. It does, however, have a banger cover. If you want a great, affordable, vintage cover of a horror anthology comic with something iconic on the front for, I don't know, a wall display or something, you cannot do much better than this. So I give it 7 thumbs up.